So this is the first video on my channel. This is something I've been wanting to start for a long time, so I'm really happy to finally upload my first video. Please be sure to give me any feedback you may have down in the comment section. Anyway, let's get into the video. I investigated 4 of the most disturbing internet rabbit holes. These 4 cases look completely unrelated, but each of them started with the same thing. One moment that would turn out to be the last time they were ever seen alive. 500,000 disappear every year in the US. Most of them are eventually found. But every year, around 90,000 cases remain unsolved. People who disappear and are simply never found again. I started researching one of those strange disappearances, but the deeper I went, the more questions I had. Case 1. Brian Schaefer. Brian Schaefer walked into a bar in Columbus in 2006, but he was never seen leaving it. He just disappeared. Brian is 27 years old at the time. He's a medical student at Ohio State University. He has a girlfriend and many friends. On April 1st, he goes out with friends to celebrate the start of spring break. He meets one of his best friends, William Clint Florence. Later that night, they meet 2 other friends, Meredith Reed and Amber Jeffries. Just after 1 a.m., the group arrives at a bar called the Ugly Tuna Saloona. The bar is located on the 2nd floor of a shopping complex called South Campus Gateway. To reach it, customers have to take a set of escalators that lead to the entrance. Around 1:55 a.m., the cameras capture Brian walking up the escalator with Clint and Meredith. He talks with them briefly near the entrance. He turns around and steps toward the bar. This will be his last official sighting, because after that, Brian Schaefer is never seen again. Not by the security cameras, not by the staff, not by his friends, and not by anyone leaving the bar that night. The problem is that the Ugly Tuna Saloona had only one public entrance, the same escalators Brian used to go up, and those escalators were covered by security cameras. Throughout the night, the cameras recorded hundreds of people going in and out of the bar, but Brian Schaefer is never seen coming back down. At around 2 a.m., Clint and Meredith leave the bar, and they assume Brian stayed inside. But when the bar closes later that night, Brian is nowhere to be found. It was a busy night. People were drinking. It's easy to get separated in a crowded bar. They think Brian may have left with someone else. Maybe he went to another bar. Maybe he just went home. But the next day, Brian does not answer his phone. Brian doesn't show up to his meeting with his girlfriend, Alexis Wagoner. They were supposed to fly to Miami for the spring break holidays, so she contacts Brian's father. After that, Brian Schaefer is officially reported missing. The Columbus Police Department begin reviewing the security footage from the Ugly Tuna Saloona. And that is when the case becomes truly strange, because the footage shows Brian entering the bar, but it indeed never shows him leaving. Police search the building. They check the nearby streets. They interview staff, friends, and witnesses. No one remembers seeing Brian leave, and no trace of him is ever found. To this day, no one knows what happened to Brian Schaefer after he walked into that bar. But over the years, the interest in this case didn't disappear, so I began studying every detail of that night. The layout of the bar, the camera angles, and the question that kept coming back was always the same. If Brian never walked back down the escalators, how did he leave? Some people believe he may have slipped out through a service exit. Others think he could have fallen or gotten trapped in the construction area right next to the building. Then I found more disturbing theories. Some people believe Brian may have been the victim of phenomenon known online as the smiley face murder theory, a theory that connects dozens of unexplained deaths of young men across the United States, many of whom were later found in or near bodies of water. Another detail that struck me involves Brian's friends. Police officers asked several people close to Brian to take polygraph tests. All of them agreed, except one, William Clint Florence, the close friend who was there with him that night. To be fair, polygraphs are not evidence of guilt, and they are not considered reliable enough to use in court. But that choice only created more questions. And then there is the theory that Brian never died at all. According to the former lead detective that was on the case, Brian's phone pinged multiple times around the zone of the Ugly Tuna Saloona and near his campus following the next few days. That somehow, he managed to leave the bar unnoticed and chose to disappear, to start a new life somewhere else. To this day, Brian Schaefer has never been found, and no one knows what happened to him after he walked into that bar. But while researching his disappearance, I kept coming across another case, one that didn't start with a man disappearing, but with a man being found. Case 2. Peter Bergman. In June 2009, a man's body was discovered on a beach in Ireland after it washed ashore. But when investigators tried to identify him, they realized something strange. The man didn't exist. He appeared to be a foreigner, possibly from Central or Eastern Europe. When he arrived in the town of Sligo, he was carrying a large suitcase. He had checked into a nearby hotel a few days earlier using the name Peter Bergman, but that name was fake, and the address he provided was fake too. When investigators checked it, it led to an empty field. Security cameras showed him leaving the hotel several times over the following days, each time carrying the same purple bag, each time returning without it, as if he was slowly getting rid of everything he owned. At one point, he was also seen buying 8 international postage stamps and sending packages from the local post office. When police searched his belongings for clues about his identity, they found that all the labels of his clothes had been removed. However, when the medical examiner performed the autopsy, the case became even stranger. Peter had not drowned. According to the autopsy report, he passed away from a heart attack. But it wasn't the only surprising discovery. Peter Bergman was suffering from advanced prostate cancer. It had never been treated. He only had one kidney, and his heart showed signs of severe damage, suggesting he may have suffered multiple heart attacks in his past. Despite all of this, the man did not appear to be homeless. His clothes were clean and in good condition. His teeth showed regular dental care, including fillings and a gold tooth. Whoever he was, he had clearly received medical care at some point in his life. Over the years, people online began to develop their own theories. Some believe he may have chosen to travel there to die alone, possibly to spare his family from seeing his illness. For nearly a decade, the identity of the man known as Peter Bergman remained a complete mystery. Until 2018. That year, investigators were finally able to identify him through a DNA match. His family was located, but they asked authorities not to publicly reveal his real identity, choosing to keep his real name private. His family can finally mourn him, even if, to the rest of the world, he remains the man who never existed. But the next case I investigated kept me confused for weeks, because this time, the man didn't just disappear. He reappeared in a place where he shouldn't have been able to. Case 3. Ray Rivera. In May 2006, a man named Ray Rivera received a phone call at his home in Baltimore. Seconds later, he ran out of the house in a hurry. A friend of his wife heard him leave. It would be the last time he was seen alive. Ray Rivera was 32 years old. He was a writer and an aspiring filmmaker. He had recently moved to Baltimore with his wife, Allison. The move had been arranged by a close friend of his, Porter Stansberry, but after that phone call, Ray simply vanished. His family and friends began searching for him. They contacted hospitals. They called people Ray might have met that night. They printed posters and distributed them around Baltimore. Then, during the search, Ray's family found something important: his car. It had been parked in a lot near the Belvedere Hotel. That discovery shifted the search to the area around the building. For several days, investigators searched nearby rooftops, stairwells, and hotel rooms. Then, About a week after Ray disappeared, someone noticed something unusual, a hole in the lower roof of the Belvedere Hotel. Below it, inside an unused conference room in the building, Ray Rivera's body was discovered, but the location of the body raised more questions than answers. At first, investigators believed Ray may have fallen from the top of the hotel, but the details didn't make sense. Ray was known to have vertigo. There were no signs of a struggle, and no clear explanation for how he could have reached the place where the fall started. The hotel's security cameras also never showed Ray entering the building. Most of the camera footage from that night was missing or deleted throughout the Belvedere area. Then, investigators found something inside Ray's home. Behind Ray's computer, a note was found. It had been folded, sealed inside a plastic sleeve, and taped to the back of the monitor. The note began with these words: "Before I continue with my instructions for the council and claim my prize for my service, I'd like to allow my family and friends to know that I love them very much." The note contained lists of names, references to films and celebrities, and this sentence: "Virtus junxit mors non separabit, whom virtue unites, will not separate." The phrase is not random. It comes from a Masonic ritual. Among Freemasons, it refers to the bond between members of the Brotherhood, a connection believed to be so strong that even cannot break it. The sentence is also associated with the 14th degree of the ancient and accepted Scottish rite of Freemasonry. Freemasonry itself has 3 main degrees: Entered Apprentice, Fellowcraft, and Master Mason. After that, some members continue into systems like the Scottish Rite, which includes 33 symbolic degrees. The 14th degree is known as Grand Elect, Perfect and Sublime Mason. And the phrase Virtus junxit mors non separabit is traditionally engraved inside the ring given to members of that degree. Loyalty, unity, and brotherhood beyond life itself. The rest of the letter didn't make much sense either. At one point, Ray appeared to address a mysterious council. He wrote about something he called the game, and in one passage, he seemed to ask that certain people be granted additional years of life. Some people believe the note explains what happened. An analysis from the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit suggested the note may have been written during a psychotic episode, possibly with persecutory delusions or bipolar disorder. This theory also supports what investigators believe happened. Ray Rivera was not pushed. The position of the hole in the roof suggested that he may have taken a running leap from the top of the Belvedere Hotel. His injuries were consistent with a fall from that height. The Baltimore Police Department concluded that Ray Rivera had taken his own life, but the story doesn't end here. In the weeks before Ray disappeared, there had been 2 attempted break-ins at his home. Then there was the phone call, the call that made Ray run out of the house that night. Investigators later traced the call back to the company owned by Porter Stansberry, Ray's best friend. Stansberry and Associates. The company's offices were located at proximity to the Belvedere Hotel, but when police tried to question the company, they refused to cooperate, which only created more theories online. Ray also mentioned Porter several times in the note. "To arrange for future transactions, you should visit me at any of the properties that I will resume control of. My primary residence, which includes a beautiful piece of property in northern Argentina, and I'm told, has biggest mansion in Buenos Aires. Well done, Porter. In Europe, you can wait at the flat in Nice or in Madrid, although if I'm in Spain, I'll probably be at the Cadiz. In Asia, you will be able to find me in Thailand. Another job well done, Porter. I will keep the 2 houses in Los Feliz, California, and the 1 house in San Francisco. Although I'll be looking for a new place in Baltimore, and perhaps some other cities." In the passage where he seemed to ask that certain people be granted additional years of life, for example, he wrote that those years should be given to a list of individuals, and next to Porter's name, he added a strange remark: Porter Stansberry, if he didn't do it himself. To this day, no one knows exactly what Ray meant, and nearly 2 decades later, the death of Ray Rivera remains officially classified as undetermined. Our next and final case is a sensitive one, and the rabbit hole I came across felt completely different. Because this time, it started online. Case 4. Isaac Cappy.
I made a really stupid, cynical, petty, stupid decision this week. And I did it in the blink of an eye. I'm not suicidal. Something bad is about to happen? Yeah, something bad's about to happen. Am I in danger? Yeah, I'm in danger. But only because of myself.
When I first saw this video, I had no idea who Isaac Cappy was. He had appeared in movies like Thor and Terminator, a small Hollywood actor. But in 2018, his name suddenly began spreading online, not because of an upcoming movie, but because of what he was saying. Isaac started to go live and record videos of himself. In them, he claimed that powerful people in Hollywood were involved in disturbing crimes. He talked about secret networks, groups, and famous actors being part of it. And his videos became more and more alarming. In one video, Isaac claims he has done something terrible himself. In another, he apologizes to people he said he has hurt, calling himself Judas. His behavior became unpredictable. Most people believed he was experiencing signs of psychological distress. Then, on May 12, 2019, Isaac posted one last long confession on Instagram. He admitted that he had been a bad person, and he apologizes for betraying the people who believed in him. Less than 24 hours later, Isaac climbed onto a bridge in Arizona and jumped. A passing truck struck him shortly after he reached the floor. Police enforcement rules his a suicide. At the time, Isaac was dismissed. He talked about certain elites harming more vulnerable people. But in recent years, several scandals involving powerful island people have come to light, and many Reddit users believe Isaac may have been warning people long before anyone else. We may never know what really happened to these men. And like most rabbit holes, there are still more questions than answers. I'm the Antisocial Investigator. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.